This episode is brought to you by FX's The Beauty Official Podcast. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's hottest new series, The Beauty, taking you behind the scenes with its amazing stars as they discuss the show's most jaw-dropping moments. Featuring Evan Peters, Anthony Ramos, Jeremy Pope, Ashton Kutcher, Rebecca Hall, Bella Hadid, Meghan Trainor, Isabella Rossellini, Jessica Alexander, and Ari Grainer. Search FX's The Beauty wherever you listen to podcasts.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
Welcome back to The Case for with Chris Cox, the pretend procedural, which is set not in the court of last resort, but rather in the court of the Disney World Resort. This is the podcast where theme park expert Len Testa and mind reader Chris Cox regularly debate on some of the more trivial aspects of vacationing in Orlando. What makes visiting here a complete joy or an absolute misery? I am the less than honorable James Robespierre Hill, and I'll be presiding over today's proceedings. And after hearing Chris and Len's arguments, I will then render my verdict. I remind you that all verdicts are final, unless, of course, they're not, which means we'd love to hear you, the listener, have you weigh in with your thoughts on these not-so-weighty topics. And we will get started here in a moment, right after I finish this strongly worded note.
Is it just me, or does his honour seem a trifle agitated today?
Yeah. You work with Jim for a decade or more, you get used to these weird little tantrums.
Your honour, if I may, can I approach the bench?
I have never been so insulted. Granted.
Whoa, is something wrong? You seem a little testy this morning.
Well, I have a perfect right to be upset. I just volunteered to judge a pie-eating contest.
Of course you did.
And I only just now found out that while I'm presiding over this pie-eating contest, I don't get to actually eat any pie. I just have to sit there and watch other people eat pie.
Yeah, isn't that the whole point? You know, in the sitting in judgment thing, you observe, you don't partake.
But there's pie. I mean, a lot of it. And I don't get to have any. Where is the justice in that? I mean, what is the point of me spending all of this money on these dresses?
You mean your judicial robes?
And this hammery thing?
Your gavel?
If I don't get to have pie.
Okay, understood, Your Honour. Let me loop in the clerk of courts. Excuse me. Yeah, how does one arrange for an emergency baked good? Is there an app or something for this yet?
I love that Jim is trying to add a degree of difficulty component to pie eating, judging. That's great. So, while Mr. Cox is trying to arrange to have a pie quickly delivered to this courtroom, if I may pivot to the actual topic of today's show, Your Honor.
Granted.
Which, appropriately enough, deals with speeding up the overall theme park experience.
Ah, yes, that's right. You and Mr. Cox wanted to debate the pros and cons of using Lightning Lane. Am I right?
That's right, Your Honour. Yeah, and actually, I think there's an app called Pronto Pie. I'm going to look into it. I'll see what I can do.
All right, then you two may proceed.
Wait, Chris, why isn't it called Pie a la Road?
Yes.
Oh,
It
right
is
there.
now.
Pie a la Road. All right, let's get ChatGPT to write that up real quick.
Right, come
All
on.
right.
This reminds me of, we will get into the episode in a second, but there's an app I want to create called The Slice is Right, and it's an augmented reality app for cake or pie, or pizza or pie, and you put you put your camera over it, you say how many people you are, and it tells you where to slice. I believe this needs to be a thing.
Oh, yeah, how could it not? Yes, The Slice is Right. Yes. Genius. All right.
Good. Someone's going to do that now. I'll take 10%. Thank you.
And I love that we're doing this topic on Lightning Lane because, Chris, both you and I have used various Lightning Lane products over for our last couple trips, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was in Disney World last year for a couple of weeks, and our system was to use a Lightning Lane once per park. So over our 2 weeks there, we used 4 different lightning lanes, and we then bought some instant lightning lanes as well. But I suppose, Len, do you want to very quickly, as best you can, quickly summarize the lightning lane system as it is these days?
Sure. It takes a minute to do it, but basically it's a ride reservation system where you pay Disney for the ride to make ride reservations at one of three different sets of rides. The first version is Lightning Lane Single Pass, where it's one sum of money for one ride once. So if you want to ride,
pay your money, get on the ride.
Exactly. The simplest form of Lightning Lane, the one that requires the least amount of value judgment thinking, right? So for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, you're going to pay on average $13 for one ride on that ride. Max cost is $15. For things like Tron, it's $21. Guardians of the Galaxy, same thing. Flight of Passage, a little bit less, $17 on average, and then Rise of the Resistance is $22. You can add, $3 to each of those for their max prices. But basically, for somewhere between, $15 and $25, you can ride one of the most popular rides in each park once. Yeah. Then there's Multipass, which is choosing from among a set of attractions. Because Disney can't do anything in an uncomplicated way, there are a ton of rules around this. There's a set of attractions. They're sometimes grouped into tiers. There are rules around when and how you can get them, and the supply of those is more constrained. Then there's Lightning Lane Premier Pass, which is basically trading money to get rid of the time constraints and complexity constraints. Lightning Lane Premier Pass is the way that you think Lightning Lane should work. You pay a lot of money, you show up, tap a tap style near the ride, and go in immediately. There are no reservations. You don't have to worry about which attractions you're allowed into or not. You don't have to worry about how long you're going to wait between reservations or anything like that. You just show up and go.
And I have used a mixture of multi-pass and single pass. And, as a good example, Rise of the Resistance, we were a family of 4. The line when we got there was around 2 hours. So in my head, I went 2 hours in line versus $100 to not wait in the line. I mean, $100 is $100, but we paid the money, we got on.
And your kids were how old at the time?
They were 5 and 7. So to me, 2 hours of waiting in line with them moaning about waiting in line was worth $100 to not have to do that.
Yeah, that's a value judgment I think a lot of us are going to make there. I totally see that too. And where did you use Multipass?
We use Multipass in every park. So we kind of would take a day per park. We go we can Multipass this. And what that really allowed us to do was, there's a discussion to get into of how much planning and stress goes into booking it and pre-booking it and working out what you're going to do when ones come up and you do this and then you take a seat. There's so much out there on what to do and how to do it. So you kind of learn that. And I realized I spent a lot of my time during the day on my phone rebooking passes. But the main thing we discovered that it was useful for was knowing we had those multi-pass days meant, we can kind of crack through everything we want to do on those days. So then the other days we're in the park, we're slightly more ad hoc to go all right, what's got a shorter line? What show didn't we see? We're sort of slightly more relaxed because we feel like we've got all the things done we needed to when we paid to do them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big advantages to Lightning Lane Multipass. Ever since they reverted back to allowing you to book 3 reservations in advance, you can know, many days before you actually arrive in the park, that you've got a guaranteed maximum wait, a guaranteed ceiling on a wait for 3 high priority rides for you. And that actually allows you to change and simplify your rope drop strategy if you're into that sort of thing as well. So the way that I look at Lightning Lane Multipass is not only that it allows you to save time in line, but it also, for the specific rides that you choose, but it allows you to prioritize another set of attractions for rope drop and get to those attractions quickly as well. So there's a knock-on effect to using Lightning Lane in the morning.
We very much took advantage of this. So a good example is Hollywood Studios, where Slinky Dog Dash is your kind of up there, your number 1 Lightning Lane choice, along with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad. They're both tier 1. Am I right in remembering that?
That's a great question. In the show notes, we've pasted charts that say which attractions are in which tier. So
great. Let's double check those then.
So for Hollywood Studios, it's Slinky, it's Runaway Railway, Rock and Roller Coaster. I'm sure Rock and Roller Coaster will be when it turns to Muppets. And then
Smuggler's Run.
Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. I'm a little surprised by that one.
So what we would do is we would book Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad or Slinky Dog Dash, depending on which one was available at the earliest time, and then rope drop the opposite one knowing that we would then hit up Tower of Terror and something else like Star Tours. And then as soon as we hit that first ride, next one opens and the tiers sort of don't exist at that point so much. So then we would just kind of be bashing through, trying to get as early a time as possible. And I remember quite well, actually, it works out really nicely, and we would normally be able to fill a morning quite well with pre-booked and then standbys and rope dropping, go back for a couple of hours to rest while building up stuff for the afternoon to go back to the park in the evening and crack through some more by stacking some options.
All right, so I think that's a fantastic strategy. But the thing that you said there, Chris, about scanning your phone and stacking, that does imply you're on your phone quite a bit.
I'm on my phone more than I would like to be on my days with Lightning Lane. And the upside is it's a better day for all of us who are waiting in line less. The downside is I feel sort of slightly disconnected that day.
Right.
Because I'm constantly looking for alerts. I'm trying to see if there's a better time. And, you normally get 10 minutes, maybe 15, waiting in a standby line. And I'm spending most of that time refreshing, seeing, can I move things around? Can I do things slightly better? Can we make better use of our time and money today?
It's just so interesting you bring that up, because when you talk with the Imagineers today, that very thing that Chris described about your face down on your phone trying to make the best possible use of the system and this technology, but the fact that you then get disconnected from the environment you're around. And when you think of the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent on whether it's the physical buildings or the elaborate queues, this is a concern of the Imagineers. It's weighing convenience to the guest versus the type of the immersive storytelling that Disney is famous for.
And I do think that's where the Premier Pass is worth that extra money, because it does mean you can disconnect that day and just go on what you want when you want by tapping in. And I do think as well, a bit of a con of a Lightning Lane is you do often miss out on both the ride sometimes is better by waiting for it, because you build up that excitement and anticipation. So you miss out on that. I mean, it depends how long you're waiting. But if you're suddenly you're like, oh, I'm now on it, it can be all over too quickly to kind of fully enjoy it. And also you miss out on seeing a lot of the great design work and fun things in the queue line.
I think to Jim's point, there are a lot of conversations happening these days in Walt Disney Imagineering around how much money should be spent on standby queues, because people are generally on their phones now and not looking at where they're at. So I think, past a certain amount of minimum theming, I think you're going to start to see arguments from either management or from the Imagineers themselves saying, how much do we really need to put into this queue, knowing that most of the time people are going to be checking social media instead of looking at what we're designing? It's a really interesting question. But Chris, let me ask you this question: when you were using Lightning Lane Multipass in Walt Disney World, and you were trying to optimize throughout the day, how many Lightning Lanes do you think you were obtaining per day? Because I think the Disney fine print says expect somewhere around 3 to 5.
Yeah, I think that's what we were expecting. And actually we did more than that. I think our average was kind of between 6 and 8 most days. And that came from a mix of stacking in the morning and being able to book as early as possible, using rope dropping strategies. And then as soon as we hit those early rides, getting other ones in as quickly as possible. And also a lot of refreshing and looking if something else had come up so we could move things around. I think if I'd have been less on it, we'd have probably hit 4 or 5 quite easy. But I think you can go up more if you basically take a full-time job when you're on vacation, and that full-time job is to book yourself Lightning Lanes.
Did you happen to take advantage of the Lightning Lane grace period for any of these attractions?
Yes, this is a great thing when you realize that you kind of get, is it, an hour kind of before, after the event if you need it, and maybe 5 minutes before if you're lucky, and depends how good you are at sweet talking cast members at entrances or how cute your children are looking at that point. But it does sort of give you a little bit more flexibility. And I discovered this kind of by accident in, where I think we were on Frozen Ever After and had to get over to Remy before our Lightning Lane ended. And you go like, we genuinely haven't got time to do this. And we got there later and they were like, oh, it's fine, come on through, you get about an hour's grace. Is that right? Are there numbers on that, what the grace is?
So officially, you're supposed to return during the 1 hour time window that Disney gives you. In practice, you've discovered that you can show up 5 minutes early, and that's true. The grace period actually extends 119 minutes.
Oh wow!
After the
really?
your return window, Yeah, and it is literally 119 because we've tried to tap in obviously at 119 and that worked. At 120, the light stops turning green and it goes to blue, and at that point, you have to invoke what Chris does and rely on 2 children or a kind word to a cast member to get in. But yeah, it's 119 minutes, and the interesting thing with that is if you're willing to do that. Right. If you're willing to take advantage of that grace period, you can do some really interesting optimization. So, for example, after your 1 hour time window expires, you can actually book another lightning lane without riding that ride. So you could wait for your original lightning lane to expire after 60 minutes, grab another lightning lane, then get in the ride for your original ride, the one that just expired, and be absolutely fine because of the grace period. But the interesting thing about that is, and this is one of the, we always talk about Disney loving the rules, that only works after you've used a lightning lane in the park for the first time. So you can't let your first lightning lane expire and then get another one. We've actually tried this specifically, and I think Disney enforces this rule to ensure that you're actually in the park before you're allocating lightning lane capacity.
Which is totally fair. I think that's a good way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. No, I can get behind that.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
They always tell you there's a catch, a compromise, an asterisk. Terms apply. See store for details. May be less than advertised. May vary by mood. Probably. Sprite Zero Sugar? It's different. It's the lemon lime flavored refreshment you want with zero sugar. So, no fast voice? No caveats. Just refreshment. This is Sprite Zero Sugar. Obey your thirst.
Did you happen to use any burner lightning lanes while you were there?
Yeah, actually, we did that. We occasionally would do a burner lightning lane for something normally like Seas with Nemo, where we could tap onto it, knowing we could get back on that later without a massive line, and then use the free-for-all of it, opening up the tiers and all the other lightning lanes. One interesting thing we came across actually is we'd booked lightning lanes for Tower of Terror, and our youngest was, rightly so, too afraid to go on it. But we all went on it, and I couldn't book any more lightning lanes because hers was locked because she hadn't gone on the ride.
You had to wait for it to expire.
And had to wait for it to expire. And I think I tried to cancel it or something, but what I did basically meant we were kind of stuck and I couldn't book the next lot of lightning lanes. So I went to see someone at a Blue Umbrella, and what they did at that time is they just booked us lightning lanes for Muppet Vision, which then we weren't going to use at that time. And obviously now you wouldn't use it at all. But that meant that was the next available one, which kind of reset the system, and then we could book again. So I think they kind of had to work around it that way.
I love that the guest experience cast members know the hacks to use in My Disney Experience. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with the term, a burner lightning lane is in parks like Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios, where there are tiered rides. So there's a 2-tier system for lightning lane rides. The idea is that you want to book as many tier 1 lightning lanes as you can. So you book a tier 2 lightning lane for something super unpopular, like at Epcot, the Seas with Nemo and Friends, right for park opening, 9 a.m. And you go to that attraction immediately, use the lightning lane, and then you can book another tier 1 day of. Right, that's the strategy. So then at that point,
and the earlier you book them, the better time availability there is.
Right. So the question that I get all the time is doing this, is using a second tier lightning lane as a burner, a good strategy to get a second tier 1 lightning lane as soon as you enter the park. And the answer to this and every other question around theme parks, the official answer is it depends, right? Like you wouldn't, The seas is great because if you're walking into the park or if you're in Future World, it's not too far from where you are, especially if you're in the land area for Soarin', right? Or things like that. You can bop over there, ride the ride. It's a relatively quick ride. You wouldn't want to in the Magic Kingdom make it for Barnstormer because that's in the far end of the park. Yeah, even if you're in Fantasyland, it's still a decent walk over there. You still got to get in, even if there's no line or a 2-minute line. You're basically taking 10 minutes of your very early morning in the Magic Kingdom for that. And I'm not entirely sure that that's the best use of time that early in the morning. Mid-morning? Yeah, definitely. The other question is, what lightning lanes are going to be available and have a return time you can work with in Tier 1 after you do this? So as an example, and I threw some charts in the show notes because I'm actually looking at this for touring plans. A very good lightning lane selection in the Magic Kingdom is for Jungle Cruise as a Tier 1. And so on busy days, the lightning lane distribution at Park Open will be somewhere around 7.5 hours after the park opens. So around 450 minutes. So that means if the park opens at 9 a.m. or you can make lightning lane reservations at 9 a.m., 7.5 hours later is going to be 4:30 p.m. So if that's what you want to do, that's great. That's what's available then. But that return time has to work in with a bunch of other things for you. You've got to be in the park. You can't conflict with dining reservations. So imagine if that was 6 p.m. instead of 4:30, you start looking at whether that's going to interfere with your meals. So it depends, right? So you really have to look at FastPass distribution times to figure out whether this burner strategy is going to work, and if so, which attractions it's going to work best for.
And I think the whole thing about this is you're kind of spending money on a lightning lane to avoid having to spend time. But really, to make the best use of that money is you need to spend the time before buying the lightning lane to kind of research and work that strategy out. So what I'm thinking is, and maybe Your Honor, I feel like you probably can't give a decision on this yet. And maybe this is going to have to be our first two-parter.
Perhaps. I mean, I have to admit that, my initial take on this was to lean into being a grumpy old man and start to whine about, I remember the days of FastPass and, when this was free and yada, yada, yada. But to hear, I hate to say it, but Chris's earlier argument about 2 hours of standing in line with his 5-year-old and his 7-year-old and, on a Disney World vacation. And what's the value of that? I mean, that's real world stuff.
Yeah.
And it's sort of double value, right? It's the value of both getting on that ride and then the extra time you've now got to go on another ride. So you really, sometimes when you're buying a lightning lane, you're buying a lightning lane for 2 rides, kind of.
There we go. And again, the other, I think, reality, in fact, it's interesting because we're recording this in the lead up to the Super Bowl, and just in the past year or so, we've heard the stories about how much people paid to go to a Taylor Swift concert. And when you factor in how much you spend to fly to Orlando, how much a hotel room costs on property or even in the immediate vicinity, coupled with the cost of admission to the park, the notion of that, you're finally inside the park and you want to make the most of your time, that, suddenly what you guys are saying makes Premier actually seem like a good value. So, you're right. I think we may have to revisit this.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I used it in Disneyland. We'll talk about it.
Okay, it's a 2-parter. What a cliffhanger.
Wow.
Oh, and actually, this is very good timing because, Your Honor, the speedy staff at Crusts R Us, which is the app I ended up using, have got you your very own Boston cream pie.
Oh, now that is a very thoughtful gesture on your part, Mr. Cox. But just to be clear here, a Boston cream pie isn't a pie. It's actually a cake.
Len, did I do something wrong here? He seemed to really want a pie. I ordered one. That's from a region of his country. He lives near Boston, right? Or is it New Boston?
Just back away slowly, Chris. Don't make direct eye contact. He always gets a little squirrely when there's food around.
Pie.
Your Honor, maybe take that out of the box before you begin eating it.
Oh, Chris, before I forget, it's critical to know this. Never feed Jim Hill after midnight.
Isn't that Gremlins?
I said what I said.
Hey, with that, Another session here in these hallowed halls, the court of the Disney World Resort, has now come to a close. My thanks to theme park expert Len Testa and master illusionist Chris Cox, who will be back here in 2 weeks as we three do a listener email show, where we will then share you folks' thoughts on these most recent cases, and then at some point in the future, we'll circle back on this whole Lightning Lane issue. But until those episodes post, The Case 4 with Chris Cox is now closed. Thanks for listening. This is the less than honorable James Robespierre Hill, and this court will be back in session just as soon as I finish eating this pie that's not really a cake.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.